Habari za mchana. I realize now I keep saying habari za asubuhi, but it's mchana. It's 12 p.m. here in these United States. So habari za mchana wanakumbukeni, karibuni, and thank you all for joining us. My brother Alimadi and my brother Adisoji. Again, I am Duko. I am a Black woman who is fed up with the oppressive and exploitative systems and has decided to do something about it, joined by my brothers and the community. Brother Adesoji, Brother Milton, introduce yourselves, please.
Yes, again, good evening. Kudede Woyi from London, UK, London. As you know, it's the heart of empire. Well, the mother of imperialism. Long may that reign over. Well, again, yes. Welcome to Kumbukeni. I am speaking to you from London.
Yes. Sisters and brothers all over the world. This is Milton Alimani from New York City, the heart of the new imperialism, which is now being challenged, of course, by rising powers like China. And we hope through our conversations here in this open university that we will be able to empower people with knowledge to put the right questions and challenges to inept, incompetent, and corrupt leadership in African countries so that Africa can really realize its potential. So welcome to our Open University Kumbukeni. Asanteni.
So our goal here at Kumbukeni is to give you the African story from an African perspective. Myself originally from Kenya, Brother Alimadi originally from Uganda, and Adesoji from Nigeria, having spent quite a significant amount of time in those areas and knowing the culture there. But also, our goal is to provide what is actually happening and what has happened through history, to remind us of our history, to decolonize our minds, to change our mindset from what the Western media has planted in there, that is a false narrative, and to awaken us so that we can find ourselves, because we are a lost people in this moment. So today, in finding ourselves, we're going to be talking about oil imperialism. We're going for the oil companies, international oil companies that have found comfort on our land in Africa and that are causing a lot of harm there, a lot of destruction, a lot of killing of Africans like you and I. Adesoji, as we speak about killing Africans like you and I'd like us to start with the story of Ken Saro-Wiwa, because he's an African who stood up against the oil companies in Africa. Adesoji.
Well, Ken Saro-Wiwa, as everyone knows, was killed on November 10, 1995 at exactly 11:30 a.m. And that execution brought everything to a head. And why do I say that? Oil was discovered in Nigeria in the early 1950s and has been exploited ever since. 15% of that exploitation actually takes place on the Ogoni land. Now, the Ogoni land, for those people who are not aware of it, is at the mouth of the Delta. So if you look at the map of Nigeria, the map with the rivers, you will see strains that looks like the veins on your hands. That's the Delta. So depending on which side of it you go to, Ogoni is on the eastern border of it, near the Cameroons. So oil was discovered. That's not the first oil that was actually discovered in the Delta. The reason for the Europeans coming in was the discovery of oil palm. So oil palm, the one that makes all your soaps, your perfumes, your candlelights, your whatever, the list is endless, but oil palm was the key access to it. And for those who don't know what is transpired based on the oil palm, you just need to Google a name, and the name is Jaja of Opobo. That's the entry point to understanding the oil palm politics. But back to Ken Saro-Wiwa. So oil has been exploited in Ogoniland since the early 50s. But here's the thing. The Ogoni people are a riverine people, so which means they live off the land and the sea and the rivers, the swamps, the rivers, and what have you. But the activities of Shell as a company has not helped in the sense that pollution has taken place. So matters came to a head, obviously. People were then questioning, why is this allowed to continue? So they formed an organization called the Movement of the Survival of the Ogoni People, called MOSOP for short. MOSOP organized lots of peaceful protests and what have you. But then matters came to a head in the early 90s when riots happened and four chiefs were killed. And the four chiefs that were killed were subsequently understood to be in the payroll of the government. And so the government, wanting to make an example of uh, the organization, went after its leaders, Ken Saro-Wiwa being the most prominent one amongst it. A kangaroo trial was held. They were found guilty, even though they were not in the vicinity of the crime when it happened, but they were hung. And so here we are today. The key thing about that event was following the execution, Shell left Ogoniland, saying only to return if he was invited back in. But up till today, that invite has not gone out and it will never go out. So that is the essence. And it is key to understanding that how do you help understand what Ken Saro-Wiwa went through with his people. Being a writer, he used the weapon that was open to him. And so he left us lots of books, plays, but key is the statement that he left prior to his last hurrah on the world. And I will allow Sister Nduku to read the words to you. It's a very short paragraph, but I think it's telling enough to understand what someone will have gone through in order to put their life on the line to say, you know what, enough is enough. Sister Nduku.
Thank you. I am a man of peace, of ideas, appalled by the denigrating poverty of my people who live on a richly endowed land, distressed by their political marginalization and economic strangulation, angered by the devastation of their land, their ultimate heritage, anxious to preserve their right to life and to a decent living, and determined to usher to this country as a whole a fair and just democratic system which protects everyone, every ethnic group, and gives us all a valid claim to human civilization. I have devoted my intellectual and material resources, my very life, to a cause in which I have total belief and from which I cannot be blackmailed or intimidated. I have no doubt at all about the ultimate success of my cause, no matter the trials and tribulations which I and those who believe with me may encounter on our journey. Neither imprisonment nor death can stop our ultimate victory. I repeat that we will all stand before history. I and my colleagues are not the only ones on trial. Shell is here on trial, and it is as well that it is represented by counsel said to be holding a watching brief. The company has indeed ducked this particular trial, but its day will surely come, and the lessons learned here may prove useful to it, for there is no doubt in my mind that the ecological war that the company has waged in the Delta will be called to question sooner than later, and the crimes that war be duly punished. The crime of the company's dirty wars against the Ogoni people will also be punished.
The travails of the people of Ogoni land is best chronicled in one of his, I think his last book actually, titled the genocide in Nigeria, the Ogoni tragedy. I've left uh, the title of the book in the chat for those who might like to read further. Brother Milton.
Yes, well, comrade, in all these issues, whether it's Shell, whether it's Total Energies, the common tying theme is number one, the displacement of our people, right? African people, in the interest of these oil companies and their assets, whether it's pipeline, impoverishment of our people. Because we know that the ordinary people on the ground in the rural areas do not benefit from this so-called oil wealth. The countries do not benefit. Basically, it's just the elite that are extensions of international multinational corporations and imperialism. Then, there, of course, the exploitation. In 2022, from its operations, global operations, Shell made a profit of $40 billion. Total made a profit of $36 billion. So these are the time themes. And the question then arises, what has Nigeria benefited from its oil, which the country started exporting as early as 1958? Let's look at the per capita income. Excuse me. I'm now coughing like Sister Nduko.
I did not do anything.
Remember
I did
that?
not. I did not reach out to any ancestors.
In fact, I'm going to have to pause. I'll come back.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Speaking of toxins, Brother Milton is right in the middle of New York City and all the smog. Yes, Brother
So,
Adesoji, go on.
yes. When Brother Milton mentioned displacement and dispossession, it's not just the dispossession and it's not just the displacement. We have to also understand the health implications to all of this. What's it called? To the point of having, why do we have these organizations operating without any oversight? Why? Because most of the companies that come in, your Shell, your Total, know that the countries they're coming to operate don't have the technical know-how nor the understanding of what it entails. Now, I'll give you an example. In Nigeria, for example, since 1950, the gas has not been exploited, but has come out as a result of oil exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what happens to that gas? It gets flared. So they've been flaring gas since the 1950s. There was a conservative report done. I think I've forgotten the title of the magazine now. Very brilliant magazine. But the key takeaway from that write-up was the fact that Nigeria has lost, conservatively put, 2.5 billion US dollars every year since since gas has been flared. I mean, people should just put their head around that figure. So you're talking over 62 years of independence. So for every other year, you've been flaring gas. So it gets to the point where you then have to understand. The question that Brother Milton then posed then is, what has Nigeria gotten? I know for a fact they've lost arable farmland. There are no fishes in the sea. Or now they have to go further out into the sea to catch things that usually were on their doorsteps. If that is not even if that is not even bad enough, is the fact that the air they breathe is covered in soot. So if you went to River States or the Greater Delta, where most of this oil is produced, and you put your cloth out on a liner so that it dries because of tropical sun, when you come back, you'll be mistaken for the color it would have because one, you basically be taking soot back into the house. That's how bad it is. And the government is not doing anything about it. So when Brother Milton asked the question is, what have Nigerians gained? Well, I can tell you, they've gained some funny diseases,
Mm-hmm.
ones they never had names for before. And with with the death of health facilities in Nigeria, one shudders at what is really underneath all of that ignorance. When I say ignorance, convenient ignorance in the sense that most of people don't even know what they're carrying. So you could just take it from that this industry, simply because of lack of regulation. I mean, oil is being mined in the high Scottish Highlands here, but no one is polluting the rivers.
It's being done responsibly, right?
No one is polluting the rivers.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good
You know,
juxtapose.
no one is polluting the rivers. When the pipelines are, I mean, it's just a potpourri of disaster.
See, now that Brother Milton is back at Isuji, let's hear what he had to share about Saro-Wiwa.
Well, after my episode with the sudden coughing, I don't know if I'm comfortable talking against the oil industry anymore.
Because of your coughing is why you should speak up against them, because they probably have something to do with it.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to pick up on the contempt for African lives. When Brother Adesoji gives the contrast between how the industry operates in Europe as opposed to in African countries. Out of the destruction of one part of Ogoni land, there's a case that Shell settled out of court for $83 million, which is, of course, peanuts.
Peanuts.
Not for the entire region, just for one community. But guess what their offer was? The initial offer before it was finally settled for $83 million.
500,000.
Sister Nduku, just take a wild guess.
Bread and milk?
No, they had a dollar figure. How much?
Oh, they did. Oh, $10,000?
Wow. You almost had it. It was.
I know my oppressors.
Yes, it was $8,000.
For the entire community.
Yes, before they ended up selling for $83 million. Their initial offer was not $1 million or $10 million, was $8,000 for the entire community. So that just captures what you were saying in terms of how they operate. Europe is one thing, Africa is something else altogether. So that alone just gives you an indication. And initially, I just wanted to say, if you look at the historical outcome in terms of what have been the benefits of oil, I like contrasting Nigeria to Norway.
Mm-hmm.
And then people, I know in the past I did that, then somebody was telling me, oh, Nigeria is in Africa, Norway is in Europe. But what kind of nonsense is that? Now you have seeped the neo-colonial stereotype, and you yourself are diminishing the value of African lives. That was my response to that person that objected when I made this comparison. So Nigeria's per capita income was $93 in 1960, right? 2 years after it started exporting oil. 2021, $2,066. These are World Bank data. And even if they're distorted, when I use it for a different country, I'm using the same source. So the distortion sort of evens out. Norway discovered oil in 1969. At that time, the per capita income was $2,875, which is 24 times larger than Nigeria's. So let's see where Norway was in 2021 relative to Nigeria. $89,154, 43 times higher than Nigeria's. In fact, the discrepancy almost double from its oil. Now let's look at another data, which is the sovereign fund of Norway.
No, come on, be kind.
The money that
tear them apart, destroy them.
And it's just sitting there, right? The sovereign fund of Norway is $1.4 trillion dollars with a T, which if you put even in a simple savings account and get 2.5% interest, that would be $35 billion annually. They can live just on the interest of their savings alone. Nigeria, sovereign fund, $3.5 billion. Now, one might say, okay, Norway has a population only 5.4 million. Nigeria has 213 million. So maybe that's why Norway can save that much. But no, so let's say that Nigeria's population is 40 times, right? Larger than Norway's. So let's multiply its sovereign fund 40 times then. You only get $140 billion.
Still.
Which is still really peanuts relative to this. I think the only African country that really managed to benefit from its oil was Libya. Libya under Gaddafi. Libya started exporting in 1961, but the data on its per capita income is only available from 1990. It was 6,821 in 1990. By 2008, it was 13,922. In other words, doubled its income for its population. And of course,
we know what happened next.
the companies didn't like that. And that's the main reason, actually, why Gaddafi was removed and killed in 2011. It was not because he was, quote unquote, killing his own people, as they said, after the uprising started in Benghazi, because we have the proof. Two things. Number one, they bombed, NATO and the US bombed Libya 24/7 for almost 10 months. That's how you prevent somebody from, quote unquote, killing his own people. But today, we don't even know how many people NATO and the United States killed, how many Libyans they killed. We don't know the value of the destruction of properties. So that's one proof that it was nonsense in terms of saying that intervention was humanitarian. That number one. Number two, before Gaddafi was overthrown, there's a story in Newsweek magazine. The US Treasury Department suspended a certain law which prevents Americans from doing business with certain entities in Africa. In other words, they allowed the oil companies to start signing oil deals with the leaders of the insurgency that was being supported by NATO and the United States when Gaddafi was still ruling Libya.
Exactly.
Dissension, supporting dissension.
Exactly. They were signing oil deals. Imagine that, right? So that is the two solid proof that all they were interested was in Libya's oil. And karma is very strange. Not strange, actually. Karma is karma. They destroyed Libya. They killed Gaddafi. They sent the country back into the 18th century. And now all these companies are not even benefiting from the oil because the country rather, is in total chaos. So that is my argument about why oil has not really been beneficial to African countries. We can even talk about Angola, where
which we will talk about in a few minutes, brother Alimadi.
Just give this one example too.
Okay.
Where the daughter of the former president made $1 billion for herself, right? While the rest of the population is impoverished. Okay, thank you.
And the other proof to add to your two proofs is that we see the West supporting several leaders who kill their people and having no problem when it benefits them. So we're throwing that back in their faces and saying, no, we don't believe this. So, Brother Alimadi, and thank you for telling us that story about our brother Saro-Wiwa, unfortunately, who is no longer with us because he stood up against these oppressors. There's something going on in Uganda. There's a bit of some unrest from the people, a bit of displeasure with the government in Uganda. There's a pipeline, a Total run Total Energies East African Crude Oil Pipeline, otherwise known as ECOP, that is being supported by Total, but not just Total. And we'll talk more about this after you you speak, Brother Alimadi. But please tell us about this pipeline in Uganda. Is it up and running? What is going on? What is the risk for those of us who do not see the obvious harm that oil companies cause in Africa?
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Well, first of all, it's going to be uh, a miracle, really, if the oil pipeline is built. Because as you know, now there's an international conversation about net zero in terms of emissions and pollution. So to bring a new pipeline on board and start new oil production, I think politically it's going to be something that is very hard to sell globally. And of course, Uganda cannot build this pipeline on its own and produce the oil. It does not have the resources. And that goes back to, when you're a dependent neo-colonial state, which of course is not unique to Uganda, which applies to every African country, So it will cost about $15 billion in investment to set up the infrastructure for this oil production. The pipeline alone and the investments required is about $5 billion. $2 billion comes from the equity stake that Ugandan government has in it, Tanzanian government has in it, because the 900-mile pipeline is going to go from Uganda to the port of Tanga in Tanzania. And then the rest will come from loans. And China also, as you said, has an equity stake in it. Total has the largest, which is over 60%. So they need $3 billion in loans. And of course, because of the protests that have been going on globally, in particular, because in Uganda, when you protest in Uganda, and it's happened, of course, already, many of the leaders have been arrested. The regime basically just steps on your head under General Museveni's dictatorship. So a lot of the protests have been global. And what they're protesting, of course, is the destruction of the biodiversity. As you know, Uganda, like most of Africa, very beautiful. The land, the ecology, the people, the lakes, the rivers. So it's going to cause significant damage to the land. And of course, Ogoni land in Nigeria provides us with the best lessons and examples. And of course, also the contempt for the African people. People have been offered $13 to leave their land, leave acres of land. And, we have extended families back home. It's not your immediate family, it's your family and your other relatives, right? So they're being offered 13 United States dollars, which is, of course, the price of a decent hamburger, maybe a steak burger in a fine restaurant. 13 United States dollars to leave their land. And when you leave your land, you're displaced. And then what do you do? What do you do with the 13 United States dollars? Where are you going to get more land to be able to feed yourself and to feed your family? So you see, now you're displaced and now you're completely
destitute.
We have governments that are failing to deliver on essential services, on education, on healthcare, on infrastructure. At the very, very least, leave people alone on their land so that they can at least grow their food and feed themselves. And now you have, which is very ironic, in his, because the dictator, Museveni, is pushing aggressively for this pipeline to be built. Now, here's the irony. In his State of the Nation address, which he had, I think it was 3 days ago, he was complaining about the escalating price of food. And he said one of the reasons is because of the climate change, environmental damage, which is causing all these droughts that never occurred before. And that's affected the food production.
It's a very
And that's
smart
why
person.
prices of food are high. That's on the one hand, he's complaining about that. On the second hand, he's aggressively pushing to build this new pipeline, you know, not realizing that the new emission that will occur will also have more adverse impact on the environment. So that's the challenge. I think the good thing is that the global protest, initially by Ugandans and now other activists, have joined all over the world because, as you know, the issue of environment resonates globally. Now, as a result, many of the major banks have withdrawn from financing. Banks like Barclays, ANZ, BNP Paribas, Credit Suisse,
Hmm.
Societe Generale, UniCredit, Credit Agricole. And as a result of that, the insurance companies, the large insurance companies, are now also pulling out of this deal. Now, somebody might say, okay, but oil will provide new revenue to Uganda. How could somebody be advocating against this? I think Nigeria has already provided us the evidence that
Yes.
if you do not have an efficient, dedicated government committed to minimize the negative aspects and to use the savings to actually diversify the economy and benefit the people, which I only have one good example, and I gave that, which was Libya. Why should we risk repeating what has happened in Nigeria, in Uganda,
Yeah.
when we have a dictator who's been in power for 38 years? He's grooming his son, who's also a general because of his father, of course, fast track promotion, General Muhozi. And his most recent tweets were, I'm going to take over in Kenya.
Ho, ho, ho.
Take power.
I mean, you say that in jest, but these guys are actually serious.
Mm,
Because one, the guys who are coming in, your Total, your Shell, who are coming in to exploit the resources, don't see anything. It is profit over people. That's key for them. How much money can we make? People, well, they don't care about them. They're a hindrance. Then they can be gotten rid of. And don't worry, we'll pay somebody else to do it. So the point I want to make with that is in Nigeria, I'm trying to juxtapose it against what might transpire in Uganda, is the fact that Nigeria has 4 refineries. There is money set aside every year called the turnaround maintenance to the keys in the name, maintain these refineries. But now these refineries are just, they're moribund. They're useless. But in that same timeline, Nigeria has invested in a private refinery in Lagos. Not only is it private, they also created a deep sea port, an airport next to it. So literally feathered the nest of private interests so that Nigeria's oil wealth will now be channeled to the refinery to take care of. I mean, the mind just boggles.
The elite.
The mind just boggles. You like, really? And people are actually signing on paper that yes, I put my name to this. I put my name to this.
So, as you say that, Adesoji, I wanted to show our community a video of what's actually the damage that's actually happening in Nigeria. This is a bit long. It's 5 minutes. I will see if I can cut it in the middle, if because of how long it is. But sometimes it's good to hear from the people on the ground as to what's happening, and we can sit here and talk. But when you actually see the damage that it's being caused, is how you understand what we are talking about. So please do allow me to share this quick video, and then we can continue with the conversation. Just pause my. Bear with me. Do you hear me? Hold on.
There is no sound on the video.
I know. This whole time I've been showing the video and there was no sound. All right,
Yeah.
I'll share it in the. Let's continue the conversation. I'll share it in the
chat.
in the chat. Yes, sorry about that, everyone.
So yes, in the chat, one of our guests is Aya Nelly. She's from that neck of the woods, and so if she can join us, it would be
Yes, Aya, send me an email, kumbukeni1@gmail.com. I'll send you the StreamYard link and bring you in. Of course, yes.
Even though there was no sound, the video.
You saw the destruction.
Exactly.
Yes.
You could see the you could see the sooth, you could see, and what they were doing is what's it called? They were refining crude. Because what they were pouring into the tank there, that's kerosene.
Yeah.
So they were extracting kerosene from bots. The after product you can see in the air, the suit just going downwind, and that's going in someone's lungs.
Yeah.
So now imagine that's being done on a high industrial scale.
And yeah. I was going to juxtapose that as we were talking about the East African line. Yes, crude oil pipeline that is going to be. This is going to be coming from Lake Mutanzege, otherwise, or erroneously, I should say, known as Lake Albert. And this is the ecosystem around this lake.
Correct.
The wildlife it supports, the people it supports.
Yep.
Are all at risk. And this pipeline is projected to go northward through South Sudan, through Ethiopia, through Djibouti into the Gulf, southward through Tanzania into the Indian Ocean. If you think this issue is going to be a problem for only those countries I just mentioned, then you're delusional. Because as long as it hits those waters, it's going to affect every single part of the ecosystem in that area. This is a problem for me and my family in Kenya. This is a problem for you if you're in Mozambique or anywhere down the Indian Ocean. And by the way, for the Americans who think that they're special and they can stay within their borders and nothing bothers them, despite this week, when they saw the smoke from Canada come in, it will definitely go into the Atlantic. So this is a problem for all of us, not just Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Djibouti. Brothers.
When you summarize it perfectly.
I mean, when you mention the ecosystem, the coast of the between Mozambique and Madagascar is known as the area where sharks, dolphins, great whites, tortoises come to spawn. So imagine a pipeline going through there. I mean, I don't get this rationale for, just take, destroy, take.
Profit and capitalism.
Capitalism. It's a
what Brother Rodney said. Brother Rodney said, at one time, even we as human beings were seen as commodities.
Exactly.
That's all you have to remember. And then everything else you can put in context,
And as you say that, Brother Alimadi, the other thing I'm going to say, and I'm reaching out to Africans now and African leaders, yes, there may be a profit, but at what cost? We have seen history show us what these people do. They came into the Americas, they found indigenous people there, and they destroyed the land, and they continue to destroy the land. So why would we as Africans, especially in East Africa, we don't even need to look in the Americas past West Africa. We only need to look at our brothers and sisters in West Africa. If we're seeing all of this happen, if we're hearing from them, they can no longer fish. They have no fish. They can no longer grow healthy crops. Why would we not? This is a life and death situation. Why would every single East African not rise up against this? Against Museveni, against Ruto, if he decides to support this, against, I forget our sister, our mama in Tanzania, again, her name, that is the current president there. Against all of them, if they're signing these deals, it's time that the people rose up, because it is us who are going to be dying. It is us who will have no food. It is us who will be breathing that air. You think the smog in New York was bad? Think about oil burning. This is not forest. This is oil. So I know I am told several times not to do this, but my call to action for the people is stand up, rise up against them, because it might seem like an international problem or a problem that has nothing to do with you, but it will get to you eventually.
I mean, with the issue of the big five in sub-Saharan Africa, when I say big five, I'm talking about the countries with oil deposits. The word is realized oil deposits. You've got Chad, you've got Nigeria, you've got Chad, Nigeria. It escapes me now.
Guinea-Bissau is there, no?
No, Chad, Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, Angola. Consider the big five. And why are they considered the big five? The combined realized deposits of oil right now would last into thousands of years. But factor this. If you look on the continent, in that neck of the woods, and you look at where all the troubles are currently being spotted, Mali, Senegal, Burkina Faso, Chad, Niger, what do you think they all have in common? It's a quick question.
Islamic states majority.
Well, unfortunately, that is what the newspaper will have you believe. They all have commercial quantities of oil deposit that has just been discovered in the last 2 to 3 years. So the troubles you spot in Burkina Faso, remember, Burkina Faso is a landlocked country. It's not supposed to have oil.
One of our community members said the thing they have in common is France.
Well, that's another. That's another. That one.
That was a good one.
No, rather, you see, no, they don't have France. They don't have France in common. They don't have France in common. They have Total in common.
They have collective colonialism. I was going to talk about that.
Hold on.
Go on. Okay.
Hold on. But Total is France, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. When I say Total in common, in the sense that most of these companies, most of these countries don't colonize. Companies do. Because if you look in the legal papers now, companies are actually legal persons. They even have more rights than you and I do. They're allowed to move anywhere. Their assets are protected. So these guys go in and they're prospecting. The current problems in Senegal is emanating from Total. The problem in in Mali, Total. In Burkina Faso, Total. So when you have all of them put together and these guys, you have your gendarmes, obviously, your French gendarmes. What are they protecting? The interest of Total.
Which is the interest of France.
Which is the interest of France, 100%.
France equals Total. That's the bearded German. Remember that bearded German who wrote those big books? He said,
Max.
He said modern bourgeoisie government, right, are simply committees to take care of the affairs of capitalists.
I was Yes. So as I was doing the research on this, first of all, it was hard to stay calm. As I was doing it, the anger as we constantly dive into this history, and the constant ma'afa that these people put on us. or put us through. It is very aggravating. This particular project in East Africa is being financed not only, yes, Total is the biggest entity, but with Total is China National Offshore Oil Corporation. I don't know if it's CNOOC, it's CNOOC. You have Tullow Oil or Talau Oil, Britain. By Britain, they were there when the oil was discovered in that area in 2006.
Just a quick interjection, then continue.
Tullow, thank you.
Bribed dictator Museveni, bribed his in-law, at that time, his foreign minister, Sam Kutesa. Museveni's son, General Muhoozi, is married to Kutesa's daughter.
Of course.
And bribed some other ministers, millions of dollars. And that case somehow just disappeared, conveniently. Because at one point, Tullow was actually going to take the dominant interest. So I think the bad publicity from that case, it moved back in the shadows, and that's why Total has the lion's share. But please continue, sister.
Yes, so we have in those three companies, France, China, and Britain. And for those of you who sit in Africa talking about and elsewhere, the Chinese are good, the Chinese are good. No one is good as long as they're foreign to you. No one is good. Let's just start with that, and then we can build relations. I hear an echo. I don't know if it's me.
It's you.
I would like to qualify it, though. I would like to qualify in the sense that China never committed the genocidal imperialism against Africa, like the Europeans did historically. That's number one. Number two, I think China, if African leaders, and this is where we need to push for a change in the leadership in African countries, China can still be a salvation for African countries, because China has its major contestation with the West now, particularly the United States. China needs allies, and Africa can be an ally of China because Africa has the resources. But what we need are competent leaders in African countries who insist to China that, listen, you have the technology, you have the capital, we have the resources. We can give you preferential access to our resources, but in return, we want more than just money. We want the technology so that we can also build our own factories and manufacture, because the World Bank stops us from doing that. The World Bank says, and IMF, if we give you money in African country, this is what you can do with the money. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. And what you can do primarily is to industrialize, so that now you're producing your own smartphones, you're producing your own computers, you're producing automobiles, all these things that African countries now, expensive, import from the industrialized countries, now we produce in Africa. And China, you can help us do that. That's the kind of relationship we want to set up with China. Otherwise, Sister Nduku, you're correct. The relationship remains commercial imperialism.
They're no good guys. Yeah.
Which is no good, right?
Yeah. There are no good guys. So the place, this is irritating, this echo. Go ahead, Adesoji.
For the echo, I will say, if you have your phone, reduce the volume on your phone if you have it next to it. Hello?
My phone is reduced. There is something else. Brother Limadi, do you have your phone on with YouTube or any other place?
But I'll turn my phone completely on.
Okay, I'll do the same as well here. And this is life to the community, right? Challenges come in, we deal with them as we go on. We're trying to hit perfection as the West has taught us.
So there's some interesting posts when we get to them later on.
When I bring Aya and Baba Ineli, and Aya's father, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to pull out. Hello, family. Do you hear us?
Karibu, which is welcome in Kiswahili.
Ndio, karibu karibu.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Greetings.
All right,
All right.
I'm gonna leave you with the brothers and step out so that we can kill the echo in case it's me. Welcome.
Okay, why don't we hear from you, good people? Your evaluation of what we have said so far and any new information that you would like to share.
Can you hear us? You're muted. You're muted.
I'm muted.
There
Yeah.
we go. Now we can hear you. Go
Now
ahead.
we can hear.
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon, family. Good afternoon to all our community members.
Yes,
Okay,
go
there's
ahead.
an echo.
Give us your observations and any interesting information you'd like to share.
It's like an echo. I'm hearing.
We can hear you though, but if you can go ahead and speak, we can hear you.
All right. So this is my father who happens to. Okay, this is my father, Professor Fubara, who happens to be a big environmentalist. We can hear ourselves over and over again, so it's hard to talk. I don't know if.
Yeah, sorry about that. If you can endure through it, because we can hear you, so that means the global audience can hear you too.
Okay.
Go ahead, Professor.
Okay, so sitting next to me is a geophysicist, a geoscientist, someone who has worked on environmental issues extensively in Nigeria, in particular. So, Daddy, if you want to talk a little bit about the environmental degradation with the oil issue.
Well, the environmental degradation is attacking several aspects of our environment. The river,
Go ahead.
the river, and fishes in the river are being devastated because of oil pollution in the river for the things that live in the river. Then the river itself is part of some of the rivers that used to be used for drinking water. That now is no longer usable because it's polluted. Human beings like to swim in those rivers, and that is no longer a very palatable thing to do. Then the issue of the growth of the vegetation.
Right.
Vegetation in good places they're being devastated because of the oil that prevents the state of wellness of the soil.
Right. So, Professor,
State of wellness of the soil that produces host plant life.
And so when I went home to visit, one of the things that I noticed was you come out in the morning and there is this thick film of black dust covering everything. And I can just imagine what that is doing on the inside, on the lungs of people. From my father's house in Opobo, you can actually look out sometimes onto the Atlantic Ocean, and all through the night, there are fires burning on the ocean. Like you always hear water quenches fire, but there are actually fires burning nonstop in the on the water surface. And it was just something very incredible for me to see, and also understanding the history of how long we have fought, how long people in these communities have fought to hold the multinational oil companies and the country's government, which has been complicit, to hold them accountable with areas being devastated, no infrastructure, people getting sick. There's there's nothing in place to preserve what we know to be our environment. And I'll tell one quick story. Almost 30 years ago, when I was a freshman at Ohio State University, I checked out a book, and this book was talking about the part of Nigeria, Africa, that I come from, and they were describing all of these animals, and they were talking about hippopotamuses and rhinoceroses and all of these animals. And I was upset reading it because I thought the person was lying. I said, why do they always have to act like every inch of Africa is covered with wild animals? So I was talking to my father and I said, look at how these people are always lying to us. And my father said, he's not lying. When he was a child, all of those animals existed.
Wow.
And in just one generation, they cannot be found in that area at all. So this has very long-lasting effects on all of us in a multitude of ways.
This is very chilling. So one question to both of you, Aya, and to Professor Fubara. Do you think there needs to be a moratorium on further oil production in Nigeria? Should they stop producing oil until a lot of these issues are dealt with, and perhaps even stop producing oil permanently? Of course, that's politically something very difficult to sell, but what would be your view to that question? Aya and Professor Fubara, did you hear the question?
Well, the issue is not to stop production of oil. Take the American. I said the issue is not to stop the production of oil.
Okay.
We should thank God for giving oil. Because the issue is to produce it in a way that it does not do harm to the environment, which is feasible. Take for instance, the Mississippi Delta. They're producing oil here, but they're doing their best to make sure that they produce the oil in a way that you prevent unnecessary oil spillages, you prevent the unnecessary impact of the bad impact on the environment by the oil. We were given these things by God to produce for our own good, but we don't have to produce them in a way that it goes to destroy the environment that produces the thing. So eventually, you see, when I was a child, as we come out on the coast, you see fishes just playing like flies play.
Right.
And we used to go and throw hook during the break from school, catch fish, roast it in, eat it in, and go back to school. So, but now you come there, you see nothing that is moving around because pollution has devastated the existence.
So what about
As a result, people are fishermen. So they're not farmers. They depend on going out to the sea, throw their hooks, throw their nets, and catch fish and sell. Now, that is no longer there. They start now going to the deep ocean to try to fish, where in fact the foreigners are in fact all coming there to fish, and they can compete with them because they are not technologically as equipped as the foreign people who are coming to fish. But before, the fish was in the creeks, in the river, very nearby, so they didn't need any high technology to catch fish.
What about people that say we should focus on solar energy and sustainable energy sources instead of fossil fuels?
So he was just saying, should we be concentrating on sustainable forms of energy?
Like solar
Well,
and
that Yes, that's one way to go. th- That's one way to go about it. But we can use the fossil fuel which God has provided effectively without devastating the environment. The rest of the world are doing that. And I give you an example. Up here in the United States, they are producing oil offshore and they're not devastating the environment. There's a control. The technology to control the devastation is there. And all we need to do to make sure that the foreign companies that are coming to do oil production are not allowed to just do whatever they like, um, empty their balance from their boats anyhow they like. You don't empty those things which you know will float on the water and eventually destroy marine life.
So, what's your take on how Nigeria decided to deal with Ken Saro-Wiwa and the Ogoni people when they were fighting against this devastation?
Well, the people didn't understand it, and they couldn't care because the rest of the country is making money from this, and the people and the people there are suffering. They're not even getting the impact of the money. The money is taken to go and develop the rest of the country, and the people suffer the adverse impact, and nobody's taking was doing anything. That was what Ken Saro-Wiwa was fighting against until they decided to eventually kill him.
Yeah, so Sister Ndoku and
Yes.
Brother Desoji, you probably have a question.
I, I am hesitant to disagree with Baba Fubara, but Fubara, I will respectfully disagree that we need to find other sources of energy, because even in the United States, even with their responsible way of drilling, there is environmental damage. Just seeing the video that we saw before, that the sludge.
You're saying there's environmental damage even here in the way that they're getting the oil.
Yes, the sludge that we saw, when you think about farming, we have a few community members who are doing farming right now. That will not allow the soil to breathe. It will not support healthy farming. The loss of the animals, like we're talking about going into lakes and oceans, digging into them, and this is human creation, which is vulnerable to flaws, that is
Can
going
we
to end up
really
leaking into those waters. So no matter how responsible you are, there will be leaking into that ecosystem. And this is the ecosystem that we are all reliant on for the healthy environment that we have. So my hope is that we move away from drilling oil from the earth. And it has many other effects other than these ones that we can actually see. We hear of stories now of Africa splitting. We don't know whether that's, some people say it is the extraction that is causing the splitting because they have reduced the density of the land. I don't know how true that is. I'm not a scientist. But Brother Atoji, your view on this?
Yes.
Look, God makes no mistake. God who provided fossil fuel made no mistake. He provided it for our use because he said, let us have dominion over everything he created. And to have dominion is to do and take good care of all that he has created, including the fishes and the water and the oil is given us. So I cannot take Nigeria for instance. I think we have 109 years of fossil fuel left in the country, which God has provided for us. And you are telling us that we should just do nothing. All we needed to do is to effectively utilize this thing without devastating the environment by being very careful in what we do.
So,
but that is not how
thank you,
capitalism
Aya.
functions.
Thank you. I was about to say, Aya, did you?
Capitalism is about use, destroy, and damn the consequences. And when you have the kind of politicians that we have and the kind of leadership that we have, that when someone is keeping up against this, their response is to kill him, How are we ever going to have sustainable?
And I like that the conversation is actually going into table type of conversation where we're talking about how it actually affects us. I like that. We can detour from the program to actually talk about how these issues actually affect us. Baba Fubara, my issue is not that we're not taking, yes, God has provided, or the creator or the divine, who whatever we believe in, has provided that resources under the earth, but maybe it has a different purpose. Maybe it's supposed to sustain life in a different way and remain in the earth. Who is to know whether God wants us to dig it out and cause harm? And from what we have seen through history, it would appear that God does not want us to dig it off the ground because it has been causing harm. But that's a topic for another day, as far as God and what He provides and what we can use and what we are thankful for. Adesoji, what do you think about Nigeria and the effects of
Yes, so
Yes.
my question is going to probably toe the middle ground, which is I'm going to ask the professor. Good evening again, sir. Question is, we've been drilling oil now since 1958, if I'm not mistaken. In Oloibiri was the first place. So, question is, what capacity in terms of technical know-how do we have as Nigerians to exploit this oil in, as you put it, a responsible manner? Because if we look at the topography of the companies who are currently operating within the Nigerian sphere, all of them are foreign. Everyone that does the drilling are foreign. We don't have any technical companies that are wholly Nigerian, or maybe 60, whatever percentage Nigerian, that have this technical know-how and lead in the area of oil exploration and bringing it out of the ground.
Did you hear the question, Aya?
So, like, what's happening is we're getting a delay. You guys start talking, and
I
then
know.
it plays
I
itself
noticed
again.
that. You
Okay,
know
so
what? Let's try this so that you can. It is 11:11. In 3 minutes, we can have you go out and come back in, and then we can finish with you with both of you, if you don't mind. And then when you come back in, just turn off your phones, turn off anything that you have that's on YouTube, and then you can rejoin us.
I don't have anything else on.
Yeah, I think we just struggle through it at least.
Yeah, but they say
have
they
my
can't hear
timer.
us. As long as you can finally hear us, we can continue then.
Okay, so did you hear my question?
So what he's saying is that we have all of these years where they've been extracting oil and it has not been sustainable. What's going to change?
Well, the only thing that can change
So
is
just a short answer.
the only thing that can change is for government to make regulations and make sure those regulations are enforced. God who put the oil meant we should find a way to get the thing out. And he said we should take care of everything created there, including the fishes and the animals and the plants. God makes no mistake. If you wanted to,
So what is it that is going to change in Nigeria that allows us to become more responsible in taking care of what we've been blessed with?
that is the government and the legislative arm to put regulations in place and enforce those regulations. That's the only way to do.
So if it wasn't done before, if it wasn't done before, what's going to change now for our government to start actually caring about our land, our people, and making regulations and enforcing regulations that serve the people and not just their own pockets?
You know, the youth and the people that rise up in the spirit of Saro-Wiwa and say this must not be done or we will stop. You know that Saro-Wiwa was able to stop the oil company from operating in the Ogoni area for years. He stopped them and they didn't operate there. So the rest of the country should not just be sleeping. They should adopt that same kind of thing. When you do what Saro-Wiwa did, then the people will begin to think how best to get the oil without damaging the environment and its people.
So it's up to us, I guess.
So,
it's up
yes.
to the youth.
Sister Aya,
So
we like you as our new Africa correspondent. We're definitely going to recruit you for more. We like the way you press your father. So
I know, right? That's I was about to say the dynamics of an African family. That's what we're bringing in. The true dynamics of an African family. When you have a revolutionary daughter, that's what we're talking about. A daughter who wants to see change.
Thank you.
The thing I wanted to say, Lord have mercy. Take it over. I have lost my train of thought. Continue.
Don't forget the comments, because some of them
I do see them.
Our guests may want to respond to some of the comments.
I do see them, but as I get my train of thought back, do continue, brothers, please.
Okay, very good. Well, the leadership issue has always been the challenge, of course. And we're not condemning Nigeria because it's an Africa-wide issue. The continent is so endowed and blessed with natural resources. The continent is so endowed and impressed with well-qualified and trained people that we are helping to create wealth in other parts of the world, because our governments back home make the political environment very hostile, right? So that's been our problem. And that's something that we need to change. We know what needs to be done. When we have leaders who try to change the dynamics, like Thomas Sankara, they're eliminated. There's no shortage of capable people in countries in Africa, including Nigeria. So I don't know, what are your thoughts, both of you, Professor Fubara and Aya, in terms of how can we create this enabling, friendly environment that will allow our people who are capable to do the right thing?
Go ahead.
Well, the extreme part of it is to enforce what Saro-Wiwa tried to do, to stop everything. If you stop everything from operating, then and they need to still get oil, then you give them conditions under which they should operate, or they can come and take oil.
And not only for oil, for all.
I think the other part is what the three of you are doing. I think the other part is what Kumbukeni is doing, is that in our culture that's, growing up in Nigeria, we were not necessarily having these conversations. We were not talking about the devastation. We were not talking about that there are alternatives for anything. And so the education component of what you all are doing and getting people to really start to think about, yes, this is what is, but it is not what has to stay. It's not what has to remain. It's important. Revisiting people like Ken Saro-Wiwa, because there are young people now who have never heard that name.
Right.
He was killed when I was still in college, which was many decades ago, who don't understand the fight and who don't understand why we must pick up that baton and continue to run with it. But I also have to speak to my elders. It's great to put more pressure on the youth as to what they should do, but it's our elders who are supposed to be operating in wisdom who are continuing to make these decisions to devastate us. My father was just telling me today that the new president for Nigeria, the illegal president, in my opinion, is appointing 20 special advisors. That's code word for more ways for them to siphon off money. Advice on what? So on the one hand, it's educating and letting our young people know we must continue this fight. It's a fight for our future. But on the other hand, it's also holding our elders in a respectful way, because we're Africans, holding them accountable for what they are doing, and that they should not be frustrating the futures of those who are yet to come.
Very well put, Sister.
I was listening to Amos Wilson.
Is the rest of the world getting fossil fuel from their zone?
But look,
so doing, are they devastating their zones?
They are.
yes,
Because
they are.
right here in America, we're dealing with fracking, we're dealing with pollution. Yes, they are. We're dealing with increased cancer rates. Yes, they are, right here.
Teach.
Baba Fubara,
Standard.
that is one amazing daughter you have there. my father can relate to the situation you are in.
Wait, Professor wants to make a comeback. Give him break.
He does.
Gave us wisdom.
Gave us wisdom how to manage it.
But we're not doing
it.
But
we've been very unwise.
Corrupts everything.
Yes.
I know it does.
Yes.
But we must correct all those things that are corrupting everything. We must not allow the corruption to take us over.
To put out another possibility other than this reliance on crude oil that we seem to have. One of our community members asked, Karen Loudon asked, imagine if in Africa, land of the sun, literally all the time, could fully exploit solar energy.
Yes. So why don't we use solar energy, which is so plentiful and will not devastate?
There is already
and to add to
it is,
go ahead.
We can go back to solar energy and use the already existing technology to harness solar energy. But now that we know how to have batteries to store power, because using solar energy, you come down to the southern coast of Nigeria. You can stay for 3 or 4 days during the rainy season. There is no distance. But if you have technology that can store solar energy for a number of days, then when the sun shines, it works. Otherwise, if on a daily basis, it not work.
We have solar, we have water. There are other ways that do not devastate people's lives.
Our water system, because the place is flat, we use the water to generate power. It's not as feasible as it is in the places where it's
but
it's very high. They have water running down at a certain speed.
yeah, but we already have there's a solar plant in Morocco called the Noir Solar Plant. It's already up and running, and it's feeding I think 2 cities actually, Casablanca and is it Tangier?
Yeah, but when you go to Morocco, there is no rainy season in Morocco where for 3 or 4 months of the year it is cloudy every day. We must have to develop our own use of solar power by having the capacity to store energy for a number of days. Otherwise, it will not work. It's working in Morocco that has sunshine 90% of the time.
The alternative in that the alternative in the delta would be what's it called, wind turbines. It doesn't have to be solar. Wind turbines,
and hydro too at the Soji.
No, hydro, because you need height. You can't.
No, but I'm talking about Africa in general. The options in Africa.
Yeah. But in the delta, you could do wind turbines.
We have 3 options.
Wind turbines.
Yeah, place them in the oceans. Yeah.
We have 3 natural options, Professor Fubara. We have the sun, we have the wind, and we have the water in Africa that we can use without harming the environment in Africa to produce energy.
And Cheikh Diop actually, he gave us a plan called what's it called again? The economic cultural basis for a federated state. It's all in there. The master plan.
I will say to our community, this here is a very typical African way of responding with the elders. They will think about what they are about to say before they open their mouth. So let's give our professor some time.
Yeah, but have you thought about the low-lying nature of the Niger Delta, for instance, on our coastal zones? But
No, go ahead. I can hear you.
which requires that if you want to use uh, water as a source of energy, where the place is flat, the technology has not been developed.
Let's develop the
So,
technology.
so we need to redirect the students we're teaching,
Exactly.
not just to acquire and regurgitate knowledge, but to figure out how to apply that knowledge to our own unique circumstances.
Adapt it.
So if we adapt it, so if we have, or really create it for ourselves. So if we have issues with our topography, what's the response for us?
I think we need to have a Pan-African outlook too.
Yes.
The Inga Dam in
must.
Congo can provide all the hydro that African countries need. And that has actually been recognized since the 1960s. The
Yes.
Inga Dam.
Both on the positive and the negative, brother Limadi, both on the positive and the negative, we have to have a Pan-African mindset, because what is happening in West Africa is affecting us as well.
No, but they're saying that that's still enough energy that it can. It's just not as hard as.
Maybe,
All right.
Maybe Professor can give us closing comments.
Yes, Professor, do you have any closing comments? And we thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, well, our closing comment is to advise our leadership who don't care, because they don't live in the Niger Delta. They're not affected. So, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. The closing comment is to try to make our political leaders who like to get places from the Niger Delta where they don't live, where the impact of the destroyed environment doesn't affect them, but they don't care. What they do, they care to get the decision. So we who live there will try to make sure that we follow the Saro-Wiwa effort to force them to take care of the environment while they're trying to get the resources to develop the country.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Aya, as well.
Any closing statements?
Just
brothers?
again, thank you for the work you're doing, for bringing these things to the forefront, for making us think. And my challenge to my children, my challenge to myself is, how do we take our knowledge and use it to solve our problems? Not just have big titles, not just live well individually, but how do we apply our knowledge to solve our own problems? Thank you all so much for what you do.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brothers, any closing statements?
I think we need more of this type of conversation.
Yeah.
We should promote this and invite our sisters and brothers from different parts of the continent and in diaspora
Exactly.
to join us the way the father and daughter did today. They bring a dimension from on the ground, and it only helps enhance our show.
Yeah. Hopefully we can, and they are actually Adesoji, they come from that area, right? By Ogoni. Yes. So they, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we will talk more about this conversation, because it is a huge topic, and it requires multiple days to speak on, because we haven't even touched Mozambique as we speak about this. We didn't even get into the details in Angola. We didn't even talk about the corruption in detail. Our Professor Fubara introduced it a little bit as he was saying, maybe we need to look at that, the corruption amongst the leaders, and choose better leaders. So, Brother Adesoji, as we finish, what are your last words?
Last words will be the words of Ken Saro-Wiwa. He says, "We change begins with awareness." You are aware now, make that change.
Excellento.
Brother Alimadi.
You made my closing statements already. So I say, luta continua. Until
awesome. Yes, and to echo Adesoji, our brother also told us, Saro-Wiwa also told us that no matter what, even when you're being attacked, despite the tragedies, everything that you face, you still stand up. In so many words, right? I am paraphrasing what he said. But no matter the challenges that you face, you still stand up for your people. He stood up for his people, knowing very well the challenges that he faced. We thank you all for coming. Asanteni. Again, to support us, you can either send us an email, kumbukeni1@gmail.com. We have a community members who sent us an email there. We're going to get to it. Send us emails there. You can join our Patreon community, patreon.com/Kumbukeni, or you can subscribe on YouTube, which also helps us at youtube.com/@Kumbukeni1. Kumbukeni would like to expand and reach more Africans, more people, and help a larger population of Africans decolonize our minds so that we can walk towards our liberation. We thank you all. Siku njema. Kwaherini.